What's up, everyone? FLASHCRAFT. That's right, it's Bo here from Flash TV Talk, and as you can kind of tell, I'm doing things a little differently today. We've got a new podcast building, the TV Talk building, with our own little office spaces and, in fact, a spot for us to record podcasts in here on FLASHCRAFT. But I thought, maybe let's get a little creative. Will even kind of encouraged us to think about ways that we could redecorate the place or kind of retool it a little bit. He is kind of the grand visionary behind putting this podcast building or podcast company inside FLASHCRAFT, and so he's asked for our input, and that's what we're going to do today. So I kind of wanted to look at what are some concepts for a podcast studio in Minecraft. Let's check it out. All right, so this first one takes what Will has done, and I think just kind of brings it, it makes it a little bit more interesting. Now, I love that Will has actually encompassed the entire room in glass. However, for a podcast studio, you would actually want something on the walls, and you're going to see this kind of throughout all of these designs, but something that will kind of handle the reverb, handle the voice echoing off of flat surfaces. You don't want flat surfaces in a recording studio. But one of the things I like about what he's got set up is he's kind of got this 3-chair thing going where literally we could go in, Legends TV Talk or Flash TV Talk could go in, and we could record our podcast in FLASHCRAFT. Like, we could stream it on Twitch. We could kind of set up our hosts, our avatars here in the chairs, and literally just be, recording the podcast, but give you something visually to look at. And I think that's pretty cool. So this kind of takes the blend of, that style of using the space in Twitch to record a podcast, but also giving it more of a podcast studio-like feel. Now, I also wanted to think through what it would be like to actually have a recording space, like if you were going to design a recording space in Minecraft as well. Beyond just podcasting, I did kind of come up with a more of a recording studio type setup. And this was really almost kind of like a last minute addition. I just got inspired, and so I wanted to kind of throw this in here. But here you've got, kind of your soundboards, and there inside you've got more of your recording studio. Now, this is very small. Like I said, this is really kind of a last minute type deal. But you think about, a recording label that's on a budget that was able to kind of get a nice little small space. You got your microphone set up right here. Whoever is your producer is right back behind that glass, and you can kind of perform and, lay down that track you've always been dreaming of here in this little recording space off to the side of our makeshift streaming studio. But overall, this is concept number one. This is podcast setup, streaming setup number one. So on number two, I wanted to kind of, I don't know. Every single time I walk in here, it does kind of have a dungeon type feel. But I wanted the walls to be a little bit cleaner and a little bit more uniform with kind of those egg cartony type feel to them. And then also do something that's a bit more traditional. So typically you do have a table, you do have microphones on the table, as you see here. And this one's a lot smaller. We've only got 2 chairs, but we've got the microphones for both. And I also put a TV screen in as well. So you've got a monitor, perhaps you've got lines on the monitor or news that's kind of coming through. What I like about this is I feel that this is probably like I think about kind of my old studio that I had back in Mississippi, and this is kind of the setup. Don't get me wrong, it didn't look anything like this, but in terms of actually having, a table and some chairs in an enclosed room, there was no natural light. We were doing everything that we possibly could to make sure that you had a good quality sound. Unlike what you're listening to now, which is me just recording on a microphone in my house, which probably does pick up a lot of reverb and a lot of echo. That's not the case for a room like this. I also like the fact that you do have the monitor that's kind of built in as well. And my old studio actually had the monitor in kind of the outside lobby type area so that you could actually hear through a speaker what was being recorded, and you could see on the monitor specifically kind of the wave file that was being recorded as well. It was kind of a cool setup. All right, so this is number two. Very, very kind of basic, probably a little bit more dungeony than I really would have liked it to turn out. But honestly, this is it. Number 3. Boom. Here's the creme de la creme right here. Now, speaking of my old podcast studio, it was in an old warehouse that was in the process of being renovated. and then was eventually renovated. But it had very much kind of that exposed brick kind of look on the outside. And then when you'd walk in, you walked into our podcast space. Here, oh yes, this is where we've got the perfect podcast setup. Now, instantly, one of the most visual things that pops out is the walls. And if you look online, you will find some great noise canceling kind of blocks that will have these patterns where you can do kind of red, blue, green, whatever your kind of color preference is, and you can intermingle those with black. And as anybody who has had these before can tell you, the black often collects dust. They all collect dust, but on the black ones in particular, those tiles always get dustier and make it a little bit more more difficult to hide the fact that that's there. And so what I've done is I've intermingled coal and blackstone to kind of give that, used, lived in even kind of feel going on here. And so I think that probably turned out. I also noticed these levers made for really good microphones. If you kind of set these across your table. And then, I just kind of for a little additional visual flair used these monitors to kind of show who might be recording at any given time. But I think this turned out really, really great. My only catch that I realized like right after I started recording is that the lighting fixture is not quite right. That should actually be a sea lantern, or there should be an additional sea lantern because it's a 2x2 door and that should be right there. But that notwithstanding, I think you can really kind of see the beautiful look and feel to what this podcast studio could be. So if you've got a house or a base that is, maybe a little bit more kind of modern or something of that nature, maybe you're kind of creating this type of warehouse that's being used for like a startup or a workspace, this is definitely a design that I would encourage. I think it's a cool looking design. And I don't know if this works particularly for what we've got on the TV Talk building, but I don't know. I might kind of take a look at it and see if this is a possibility. If in fact the idea is for us to literally like sit in the podcast studio and record on stream, then I think something like this makes a lot more sense, because this does have there's nothing in our faces. We're able to sit down and, in the chairs, and would give, a little bit more of that recording studio type of feel. So there you have it. That is 3.5, maybe, podcast studios. I mean, 3 podcast studios and one little recording space as well. So we'll just tack that in there as a bonus. Hope you've enjoyed this. And yeah, if you've ever thought about doing a podcast studio in Minecraft, I don't know if anybody has or ever will, but this maybe will give you a little something to think about. Be sure to check out the next couple of videos from FLASHCRAFT. Also, speaking of podcasts, we've got one. Flash TV Talk is the name of our podcast. We are currently doing a mini-series exploring the 90s series, the 90s John Wesley Shipp Flash series, and having a great time doing it as we wait for the CW's Flash to come back. So that show is called Flash TV Talk. Be sure to check it out. And until next time, guys, goodbye.